I think we equate success by being able to do A, B, and C all in a perfect line, no problems, nothing that deviates you from the path. That's really not the case. Everybody has their own journey. Maybe you go from A to D and then you go back to C. And again, the path doesn't have to be linear.
All right. Hello, folks. Welcome to another LinkedIn live discussion here on our School of Medicine and Dentistry page. I'm Jeff Kozlowski. I am a senior marketing strategist here at the School of Medicine and Dentistry at University of Rochester. I directly support our graduate education and postdoctoral affairs program. Very excited to bring on Brenda Santiago Narvaez in just a minute. But first, before we do, a couple housekeeping things. As always, I see we have a few folks tuning in. Would love to see your comments and questions throughout the event. If you have questions for Brenda, please feel free to drop them in the comments. We'll be monitoring those throughout our chat here. But if you are watching here at the beginning, go ahead and if you're comfortable, drop your name um, in the comments, say hello. Would love to know where you're tuning in from and how you might be affiliated with U of R. So would love to have you say hi if you'd like. Also, if you don't get a chance to catch this live, or you jump in later on, or you have to leave early, this recording will be available immediately after we finish up the live stream here. So you can always come back to our LinkedIn page and view the recording there. And last thing before we bring Brenda on, if you haven't heard, we are turning these live streams into a podcast. It's called The Next Step, and it lives on all these videos live on YouTube, but it also lives wherever you might get your podcasts, like Apple and Spotify. So if you're interested, though, check this QR code will take you to the playlist on YouTube, so you can check out previous episodes with our graduate school alumni and hear all about their career journeys. Okay, I think that's it for me here at the top. So let's bring Brenda on. She is an associate professor of biology at Rollins College down in Orlando, Florida, a 2012 graduate of our Microbiology and Immunology PhD program, also a Summer Scholars alum, also a prep alum, also did some postdoc research here. She loves Rochester, I think. Brenda, thank you for coming on.
Hi, thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. And before, I did a brief intro there at the top before we jump into our questions. If you want to give us a brief introduction about who you are and what you do.
Yeah, thank you. So, as you said, my name is Brendaliz Santiago Narvaez. I am originally from Puerto Rico, so I was born and raised there. And I was lucky enough to connect with U of R as an undergraduate many, many years ago. And that's how my journey started. But I guess we'll talk about that later. But for now, I am an associate professor of biology at Rollins College, which is a small liberal arts college here in Central Florida, in the Winter Park area. And as an associate professor of biology, I currently teach biology classes, but because I'm a trained microbiologist, I am in charge of the microbiology coursework for our majors. The majority of my responsibility involves teaching, so making science exciting for our students, but I also advise students regularly, and I also conduct scholarships. So I have my own small research lab here where I train undergraduate students, and they conduct research with me in my own personal lab.
Awesome. Well, how did you become interested in science, microbiology? Let's take it way back,
Yeah.
because I
Yeah.
know this happened at a very young age, if I'm not mistaken. You
Yeah.
kind of saw there's an interest sparked there in this world
Yeah.
of science.
Yeah, no, it happened very early on. I feel like as a kid, I was very inquisitive and I always was constantly asking questions about the things that I observed. I was raised in a household where my dad had a lot of random science facts about random things. He just liked to read a lot and learn a lot, even though he was not college educated. And that sort of kind of sparked that kind of natural ability of me to ask questions and to be curious about the world. But really, my spark of microbiology started at about 6 or 7. I do remember that we were subscribed to National Geographic. That was one of the magazines we got in our household, among many magazines, because this was the time where you would get Newsweek and all of those delivered to your house. And I remember this National Geographic specific issue that talked about Yellowstone National Park, about the science behind Yellowstone. And the article really explored extremophilic organisms. So that to me was extremely fascinating in the sense that there were these microorganisms that I couldn't see, but that were able to live in these extreme places where really most life forms couldn't survive. And that really fascinated me. I asked my dad for a microscope, thinking that I was going to explore these microorganisms, but in the end, he did get it for me. And I started just picking up random things around the house in the yard and like looking at them under the microscope. And I remember spending hours with that toy. And that really started my love for studying and exploring, the biology of microorganisms. So it was very, very early on.
I love it. And before we jump to our next question, um, Jahara, I see you're asking for a link in the chat for those tuning in from your phones. Yes, I will drop. I think you're talking about a link to um, other episodes of the podcast, and I will certainly drop that in once we finish up here. If you are talking about another link, please let me know. But any links we reference today, programs, anything like that, I will be sure to drop links into the comments. Once we wrap up. So thank you for that.
Mhm.
So Brenda, yeah,
Yeah.
in a recent American Society for Microbiology article, in addition to talking about everything you just mentioned about having an early interest in science and microbiology, you also talked about kind of struggling a little bit with the decision to stay at home in Puerto Rico to,
Mhm.
to support your family or pursue further education. So
Mm.
can you talk a little bit about that and kind of what that decision was like
Yeah.
and what ultimately made you move toward education?
Yeah. Yeah. So this kind of like has a lot more to do with my background, right? Where I come from. Um, as a student, I come from a very humble social, right, socioeconomic background in all transparency. I come from a very poor household. So economically going to college was a big sacrifice from my end, because I could have been, instead of going to college, I could have been a member of my household that contributed to our needs, right? In my house, at the time that I was attending college, we were highly dependent on government assistance when it came to where we lived, housing, as well as government assistance for our food, right? Our groceries. So at the time, being another person in the house that could have a job and supply, right, some of the
Mhm.
needs that we had as a family was important. So, as part of my decision to go to college, which was greatly fueled by my dad, he was like, "You're going to go to college, you're going to get a degree. This is the only way that you can be successful and get out of the current situation that you're in." Um, my decision to go to college and to study full time was very connected with a sense of guilt, if
Mm.
I'm honest, because in the end, I could have just decided to stop going to college. In other words, being selfish enough to stay in college and just get a job, right? And make a living, right? Get some sort of income that could have helped out greatly, right? The needs that were immediate within my household. Now, I was very blessed and lucky enough to not have to do that. Again, my parents worked extremely hard to allow me to continue to be in college. But again, the struggle from that perspective was not leaving college because academics were hard for me, because I was a very good student. I did very well in my classes. But it was more on the side of the other needs that I had as a person and how I would weigh that out versus studying and pursuing a degree. One thing that I think we forget, and I am also guilty of this, is that sometimes when our students are not engaged in class or may consider leaving college, we may think that, oh, they're being lazy, they're not dedicated to their
Mhm.
studies, they are not capable. But we sort of forget many times that these students and these people have other needs outside of what they do in college. And in many cases, these students, very much like myself, have needs that are not addressed by simply, hey, I'm going to college, right? So again, these are things that are important for us to think about. Students in many cases are very capable and able to do many things and to succeed academically, but sometimes the needs that they have within their household, whether it's like in my case or other needs, can far surpass, right, the ability to just commit and to stay in college. Now, like I said, I was very blessed to be able to complete my degree. And it was during that time that I sort of decided to explore what was out there outside of Puerto Rico.
Mhm.
And that is kind of how I found U of R as an undergraduate.
Yeah, so you first learned about our summer scholars program, right? And
Yeah.
took advantage of that for a
Hmm.
summer, and
Yep.
then pursued um, kind of some more further introductory
Hmm.
programs to research,
Hmm.
and joined the prep program. So can you talk a
Yeah.
little bit about those experiences, and then kind of
Yeah.
what ultimately made you want to, keep going with the PhD studies?
Right, right. So the professors that I had in Puerto Rico were exceptional, right? These were individuals that really were true mentors and inspired me to do more and to explore right outside my comfort zone, which clearly at the time was being at home and going to a university or a campus that was close to home. So one of my professors from the University of Puerto Rico used to give an annual talk where she would encourage us students to pursue research outside of Puerto Rico. So to go apply for a summer program, go to the United States, be in a different place, in a different environment to get a feel for what research was like outside of our home institution. So after going to her talk, I literally just went online and started looking for summer research programs for undergraduates. And I honestly have no idea how that happened, but I did find what was called then, I'm not sure if it has the same name, but it was the Gebs Summer Scholars Program at U of R, which was uh, a summer program for undergraduates where you would get the chance to do research with a faculty from any of our graduate programs. You would be living in Rochester with other undergraduates like yourself. So it was a cohort of us. And it was really an opportunity that was really exciting to me. So I applied to it and I was lucky enough to be matched, I guess, for the program. And I ended up in Marty Pavelka's lab. Thank you, Marty. It was a really, really great experience. I can tell you that doing the summer program helped me because it made me feel capable. It really helped me feel like I was good at doing this stuff and that I could do it, right? Because in the end, when you come from a different background, the expectations that people have of you or the expectations you think people have of you are so high that you sort of kind of almost stonewall your own self from getting to do things because you think people are going to judge you or they're going to think that because of your training you're not able to do things or succeed. But again, I never felt like that. I felt so like capable of doing research. I was just another person in the lab that was doing her research and learning. I was never made to feel different or less. So that experience was really awesome for me. And during the summer scholars training, we used to have like workshops and sessions. And in one of those sessions, Steve Dewhurst, who was the director of the prep program at the time, he sort of selected a few of us who I think he thought would be great candidates for the prep program. And we had a separate meeting where he basically talked to us about the program, the opportunity that the program presented for us, why we could be a good fit for it. So he was very convincing in getting us to apply for the program. I personally knew that I wanted to pursue a postbac anyway.
Mhm.
So it was like the perfect fit. I felt very at home at Rochester. So I felt like if I was going to take a step to move away from home, to go to a different place, completely different from what I was used to, after spending a summer in Rochester and being very happy there, I knew that the prep program there would be the best choice for me. I didn't know about winter, but that's okay. But I applied for the prep program, and really a few months later, so I was in the GEP Summer Scholars Program in the summer, and then by the spring of 2006, I was back in Marty's lab to do a year and about 9 months of training as a prep student. So I did that, and obviously, as a prep trainee, again, I learned so much and I got so many tools uh, that were helpful for me to apply to grad school, and more importantly, to feel confident that yes, I could get a PhD. I was able to do research, and I applied to U of R and other institutions, and I happened to get into all of them, but I chose to stay at U of R because it just felt like home. I just really wanted to keep going and pursue my career there in that environment.
That's the trick with the summer scholars program.
Yeah,
It's not winter scholars for a reason.
yeah, yeah.
Um, well, so at one point did you decide that you wanted to pursue a career of being a college professor?
Mm. Yeah, so I've always felt that teaching was something that I could do naturally. Um, Really, if I'm honest, when I was in high school, and I think I talked about this in my ASM article,
Hmm.
when I was in high school, I did very well in my science classes. And I was excited about science to the point that I had no problem sitting down my classmates and giving them a mini lecture on whatever content we were having an exam on. So it was very well known in my class, especially for my close friends, that if an exam was coming up, you could come to my house and I would just tutor you. So in my room, I remember in high school, I used to have a bunch of my friends, 4 or 5 of them. My dad got me a whiteboard, and I had my whiteboard and my markers and everything. And I would just basically field questions. They would ask me, "Oh, I don't understand this." And I would just draw it out and explain it to them. And it seemed to work because they were doing better in their classes. And I love doing that. And every time I thought about getting a PhD, I do love doing research, but the main driving force behind the PhD was to be able to teach at the college level,
Hmm.
and to do basically what I'm doing today. So I continue to sort of do that, and I felt that teaching was really an avenue that I was very passionate about, and that I believe I'm good at. So I every opportunity I had as a graduate student, or even after I got my doctorate, I kind of pushed towards getting that chance to get to teach, right? You need someone to teach a lecture for the microbiology and physiology course at U of R. I'll do it. And I would volunteer to do all these things because I knew that the opportunities to teach were ones that I would have to look for.
Hmm.
Because again, U of R is more research oriented, it's kind of focused in research, and our training is excellent in that way. But the teaching aspect of it, I really went out of my way to kind of like convince people to let me teach lectures if they needed someone to teach a class. And that's really solidified that I really wanted to get into teaching fully without having to sacrifice research because I
Yeah.
knew I could combine both things.
So it sounds like, at least to some of your graduate school fellow trainees, you were
Yeah.
Professor Santiago well
Yeah.
before you got this job at
Yeah.
Rollins College.
Maybe.
Uh,
Yeah, I remember lecturing for one of the classes for Marty, because one of our faculty had left the program and they needed someone to teach a few lectures, and I was like, "I'll do it." And I TA'd more than once as part of a graduate student, even though we were only required to TA one time. I was like, "You need me to TA again? I'll do it." And I used to teach the microbiology host defense lab uh, twice. I think I did that. So yeah, it was very
And
fun.
did that, when you were interviewing for, I don't know how the, interview process
Hmm.
went for you for
Yeah.
faculty jobs, but did all that experience sort of come in handy in
Yeah.
the interview process?
Absolutely. So, unfortunately, in order for you to get a job that involves teaching responsibilities, you need to have experience. And it doesn't matter the amount of experience. Obviously, having more experience is great, but any little experience that you can refer to in regards to teaching and having a teaching experience where you can articulate, right, how you interact with students, how do you disseminate knowledge, how do you that you understand how students learn, those are all really positive aspects that will stand out as part of the interview. And for me, it was very important that I could talk about my experiences TAing for microbiology labs at U of R. I could talk about being a lecturer for the microbiology and immunology department and teaching
Mhm.
lectures for graduate students. And any experience that I had during my training or after I finished my PhD was absolutely essential for me to get the teaching job. You cannot claim to be a good teacher without, real examples and a real narrative. And the only way that real narrative will happen is if you've actually done it, even if it's at a small scale.
Before I jump to my next question, do see we still have quite a few people tuning in. So just want to remind you that you are more than welcome to drop your comments and questions in the chat for Brenda. We'll be looking for those. Or if you just want
Mhm,
to drop in where you're tuning in from, would love to hear from you. But thanks to all those who've jumped on so far. It's nice to see a nice size audience for this. And
mhm,
so yeah, I want to move to mentorship now.
mhm,
In preparation for this, I listened to a fairly recent interview you did with a
mhm.
local radio station down there in Orlando, where you
Yeah.
talked about um, DEI in STEM and
Mhm,
mentorship in the STEM fields, and um, when it comes to inclusivity in STEM, mentorship has such a big impact. And one thing you said during that interview was, seeing is believing. If
mhm,
somebody in a particular, underrepresented group in
mhm.
STEM sees somebody in a position they aspire to, I mean that automatically, will bring them kind of closer to or make them feel more confident that this is
Yeah.
okay, this is definitely a path that I can
Mhm,
pursue. So I just can you touch on the impact that mentors had in when you were kind of starting out, and now how
mhm.
you're kind of giving back as a mentor yourself?
Yeah. Yeah, so when I was starting out, and again, this is starting out at the University of Puerto Rico, um, mentorship played a really important role because, like I said, it's really important for us to be able to see ourselves uh, in somebody else's shoes, if you
Hmm.
will. So when you have, for example, like in my case, a professor who's a woman in science, who's Puerto Rican, who studied at Cornell, and she's teaching your microbiology class, that made a world of a difference to me because that basically signaled to me that it didn't matter where I came from, that my training was sufficient, that my training would be good, and that I would be competitive and able to complete studies, not just in Puerto Rico, but in a different environment, such as going to the United States to get my training. Um, an important part about seeing others that are very much like you is also understanding the fact that you as a person are a package, right? You have your culture, you have your societal sort of experiences, you have your background. And when you are part of a minoritized group, in many cases, sometimes feeling different makes you kind of think that you're not going to be enough in many ways, right? So, again, seeing people very much like you and seeing yourself reflected in those individuals and seeing that they have accomplished many things and that they have been successful is extremely important. So, we're talking about things that go outside academics, right? I could be an
Hmm.
A student, but staying encouraged in the field and believing that I can be successful can be achieved, right? In part, not just by the grades that I get, but also seeing others that very much look like me, that have similar shared experiences than the ones that I have in that job, right? In that dream job that you would like to have. Now, mentorship again can come and can exist in many ways. I want to make clear that I've had excellent mentors at U of R, and these mentors did not necessarily share my background, but they understood that making me feel like I was capable and supporting me in my journey as I trained and as I succeeded as a grad student was an important thing. And they did that exceptionally well. So, again, I want to make clear that you do not have to be from the same background of a person to be able to mentor them. Being an ally and supporting a person providing that support, whether it's in the word of encouragement, making them feel that they can do something, providing the help that the student may need at that time. All of those things combined make a difference, and can really impact a person's life. And in my case, I believe that that was really important, and it was a significant part of why I was successful in pursuing my PhD. Again, the struggles that I had as an undergraduate did not go away while I was in grad school, right? My family's needs were still the same.
Hmm.
The challenges that my family had were still the same. It was even worse because I was very far away. But again, the support that I got allowed me to persist, which is
Hmm.
one of the things that we really want our students, especially those from minoritized groups, to do. We want them to persist. Um, Now, right, as the only Hispanic faculty member of my department, I feel like it's my duty to give back and to support all my students, right, regardless of what their background is. But I always feel a really big sense of satisfaction when I get a Hispanic student and they come to me and they say, "You've made a difference in my career. Having you as a professor and finally seeing a Puerto Rican woman in front of the class teaching a very advanced course, telling us about all of her awesome experiences as a grad student and sharing her very successful career has made a difference for them," right? So it's in those small things, just occupying the space and representing who you are by physically being there and showing that yes, you can do this, is a way that at least I see myself, how I give back, right, to my students right
Hmm.
now.
And can you also touch on your STEM Hub initiative at
Hmm.
your college as a way
Yeah.
to bring STEM students together?
Yes. So, just to give a little bit of a background of where that particular
Mm,
initiative comes from, Rollins, along with a number of other institutions in the United States, applied for a HHMI, a Howard Hughes Medical Institute grant that is focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And specifically, our grant is focused on making STEM experiences for
mhm,
freshmen, right? First year students more equitable, more diverse, and more inclusive, right? So this is a grant that we wrote and applied for a cohort of STEM faculty. So we are faculty members from biology, physics, chemistry, computer science. Yeah, so among those departments, we all kind of worked together to apply for this grant. We got the grant, right? And with that money, we needed to come up with strategies. What are some things that we can pilot right now at Rollins,
okay.
especially in the science building, which is called the Bush Building, that can help then science experiences be more equitable? We want to make sure that our students' needs are addressed and that we can ensure that we're giving them all the tools necessary for them to succeed, specifically in the sciences, right? Because
Mhm,
the grant is focused on that. So from that grant, each one of us were assigned sort of a project to work on. I am a member of the original cohort of faculty who is working on the grant. And the initiatives can be anything from faculty development. So we have a few of our faculty working
mm,
on workshops and training, DEI training for our faculty, anything from how to make your course more equitable, how to make your syllabus more equitable, training related directly to faculty. There is a group of faculty working on curriculum development. So we have completely overhauled our introductory biology and chemistry courses, specifically with these practices in mind. And then the third branch of the grant is the community building aspect. We know that in order to support students of diverse backgrounds, the students need to feel like they belong, right? Just like I felt like I belonged at U of R, we want our students to feel like they belong in the sciences. So, as the person leading that initiative, I came up with the idea that we could take a space in the science building and turn it into what we call the STEM Hub. So, the STEM Hub is basically a STEM community space where any of our STEM students can walk in at any time of the day. They have awesome. They have an awesome setup where they could sit down, plug in their computer, listen to music, and study. They have awesome modular furniture so they can move it around. We
mm,
have two walls of whiteboard space where they could write down and draw and study with their friends. But more importantly, in the STEM Hub, they can get tutoring. So they just walk in, and we have student tutors that are available at different times of the day, and they could have really easy access to tutoring, which we know is one of the more important things that we can do to intervene early so that our students can do well in their science courses. So again, the STEM Hub was a lot of work, but it's worked out. I mean, our students absolutely love the space. It is always full of students, but more importantly, is full of students from very different backgrounds at all times. So again, the community aspect is something that I'm very passionate about. So with the STEM Hub, we've worked on creating this space that is dedicated to our STEM students, and that they can just, if they need a space to study, they can just walk in, right? If they need a place to talk to a tutor, they can walk in. I personally drop by the STEM Hub at odd times during the day just to say hello and talk to the students. And again, it's a really awesome feeling to see that students have really adopted the space, made it their own, and that hopefully it's supporting their needs from now until the future, because that space will be there forever.
That's really great. Congratulations on
Oh,
on receiving that and grant and getting that going. It sounds awesome. Lastly, Brenda, would just love to give you the floor to provide any kind of one final piece of advice. Whether it's career related, teaching
mhm,
related, or kind of thinking about the culture of STEM in the coming years.
mhm.
The floor is yours. What would you like to leave us with?
Wonderful. Um, so one of the things that I always like to tell my students, because I do so much advising, I have students that come into my office and they have questions about their career and they have concerns about where they are currently and whether or not they can do what they want to do 4 or 5 years down the line. One thing that I will say, right, is that the person that you see, right, me, right now, you see me and you're like, oh, she's an associate professor, she's successful, she has a teaching job, is doing research, she's doing all the things. But we sort of forget that that individual had their own path to get to where they are, and everyone's path is different. So I think we equate success by being able to do A, B, and C all in a perfect line, no problems, nothing that deviates you from the path. That it's basically an easy shot from A to whatever you want to do at the end. What I want to say is that that's really not the case. Everybody has their own journey. Maybe you go from A to D and then you go back to C. And again, the path doesn't have to be linear. But if you are persistent and that if you're committed to doing something and you're passionate about it and you work hard to develop the skills that you need to succeed, then it's definitely possible. So, and I feel like I'm a testament to that. So, again, what you see may not always reflect the hard work that goes into that. And again, not everyone has a direct path from undergrad to grad school to the job, but many of us have had what we would call an alternative path to getting there, and we've still been able to do it. So I think that's important.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for all of your wisdom and advice today. Last thing, where can people connect with you after this if they would like to get in touch and ask you some questions?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find me on LinkedIn, right? So if you search my full name, which is Brendaliz Santiago Narvaez, and if you find me again, I'm a faculty at Rollins College, so I'm not that hard to find. But you could also reach out to me by contacting me through my email. So my email is bsantiagonarvaez at rollins.edu, which again, all of my contact info is updated in my LinkedIn as well.
All right. Well, thank you so much again. It has been an absolute pleasure having you on. Thanks everybody that tuned in live. This was great to see quite a few people still jumping on here at the end. Again, if you missed the live stream, once I click the end stream button here, it'll be published as a recording, so you can go back and check it out. And we're always monitoring comments. So if you think of something you wanted to ask but didn't get a chance to while we were live, throw it in the comments anyway, and I'll reach out to Brenda to make sure we get an answer for you. But yeah, thanks everybody. That's it. That's it for us. Thanks so much for tuning in to the latest episode of the Next Step podcast. If you liked what you heard, please share with other members of the University of Rochester community or anyone you think could benefit from these career stories. And we wish you nothing but the best in your own career journey. Until next time.